I'll just introduce myself briefly. My name is Dr. Crystal Forsman-Landers. By trade, I'm a naturopathic doctor. Prior to becoming a naturopathic doctor, I was a pediatric occupational therapist, so I have kind of a bit of an eclectic medical experience under my belt. But besides that, I'm a mom of 3 girls. 2 of them are over there right now enjoying themselves. And I'm also a homeschooling mom, so kind of all over the place. So I run a business part-time, very much part-time. And then full-time, I'm homeschooling my girls. So if you want to ask about how I do it, we can talk about it later. I do have a very supportive husband, so that helps a lot, and he's working from home, and that helps a ton. So today I want to talk about what's called Polyvagal Theory, or what it means to engage your vagus nerve, and how that impacts both our mind and our body to our mind. So it's just a way to, it's a little more sciencey, so I'm going to talk a little about science, but then we're going to bring that back into like what that means in everyday life. So I'll try not to go too sciencey on you, but just to have a bit of an understanding of what these terms mean, and then how you can, after this presentation, like how you can use that in your everyday life. So polyvagal theory, really it's a theory that was it was come up by Dr. Stephen Porges. And he just started recognizing the connection even between like heart rate variability and emotional states. So that was one of his studies that he was doing. And he designed a whole theory around that. And to me, it's just, like I said already, it's just a way to break down and understand our mind-body connection. So it's a neuroscience approach to explain how our neurology, such as the autonomic nervous system, that's like our stress system, that's our system of regulation, that's our system of calm. So you hear about fight or flight, and then you hear about rest and digest. There's more to that system, but just to kind of understand the basics, that's what we're talking about here, our autonomic nervous system, and how we need both so this social connection and this social engagement, that's actually part of this theory, and how that regulates our nervous system. And then also, interestingly, how our nervous system then comes back out and regulates our social engagement. Even like if you're noticing like my facial expressions, that's all part of polyvagal theory. So it also explains our stress response and how it impacts our physical state. So it's an understanding of how we feel safe within our nervous system, and how this promotes our social engagement. If we feel safe, we're more able to engage socially. So this is very appropriate during this time, because we just in this conversation, we are talking about how many people do not feel safe. Like truly, what is this all about? Like the masks and the vaccines and the testing, and then doing it all over again, right? It's all about that. We know, like you probably have said it in your circles, this deep sense of fear. And how is that impacting someone's autonomic nervous system? How is that impacting your body? And then, besides how all of us and anyone outside of this circle feels that state of stress and fear and anxiety, both in their body, but then how are they expressing themselves to the outside world? So it just gives us a framework. That's what I like about this theory. It gives you a framework for having self-reflection and having some reflection for other people and where they might be in their stress response. One thing I don't like about the theory is that it's how science works. Like they kind of just put things in a category and like, okay, this is polyvagal theory. We're going to put that on a shelf, and that's a category. And to me, when I listened to Dr. Porges' lectures, I just felt like he did a really good job talking about the whole person, but yet my opinion is like it didn't capture the essence of the person. Like it doesn't necessarily capture our spirit and our spiritual well-being and all that really encompasses a whole person. But I still think it's valuable just for awareness. So, so one thing that's important with this polyvagal theory, and this is so important as parents, is the aspect of something called co-regulation. So if that rings a bell with you, like first it's the ability to self-regulate, so the ability to calm yourself. And as an occupational therapist, I talked about that a lot in sensory integration. I was always trying to get children to self-regulate. Children with autism, children with ADHD. It was all about, you need to find a way to calm and be centered and focus on your handwriting and focus in class. But what I liked about this polyvagal theory is that the awareness that regulation isn't all about just yourself. Like you connect with the people around you to help co-regulate your state. And I think that's really, really important as parents because we are the models of co-regulation, and it starts at infancy with these children, right? And I'm guessing if you're here, you probably were doing those things, like you were holding your babies, and you weren't really subscribing to cry it out. You might have been nursing, you might have been co-parenting, you might have been just meeting the needs of your children. And as an infant, it's a lot more physical. But now, so we have kiddos here, 8 through teenagers across the hallway. We have to still engage in co-regulation with them. So paying attention to their verbal cues, like what do their voices sound like? What is their body posturing? Do they have a shoulder turn to? Like how can you connect with them and engage in a conversation and really be in the moment and be engaged with your kiddos? So that's something that I really took from this theory. And so it's not just parenting co-regulations, it's partner co-regulations, friendships, siblings, family. One thing that co-regulates even is the heart-to-heart connection. And that might, some people are like, oh, that's woo, but I mean, even in science now, aren't they saying like your heart field, is it 6 feet? Your heart field excited? Yeah. And so
that's why they want 6 feet.
Yeah. I know. It's all like complete opposite of regulating your nervous system. Exactly, calming your nervous system. It's completely the opposite of what we should be doing as humans. And so even coming in within 6 feet of space with your loved ones. My daughters and I, we talk about when they're stressed out, we say, let's put our hearts together, and we just give each other like this hug. You do it too? So I'm not the only one. And I've been doing that with my girls since they were little, and you just feel it, right? You just feel that both of you are calmer. Yeah. And so it's just things, and it's probably, my oldest is 9, so I'm guessing it's harder with teens. I haven't had that release, but I remember being a teen. But just continue to try to engage them in this time that we have. So I spoke about that parent-child bond, and that mother and infant interactions are truly the prototype of social behaviors. So the other thing to talk about with this theory, or this frame of thinking, is the idea of something called neuroception. So that's kind of a fancy word. It's the nervous system's evaluation of risk without you being aware of it. So that's called neuroception. So you might be afraid of something and you're not consciously aware of it, but your nervous system is. So part of this process and theory is to connect what you're not conscious to the conscious, so you can process it basically and heal it. So this is, now I'm not a social worker, I'm not a counselor. I actually took this type of work because I work a lot with digestive issues and digestive pain, but that it totally makes sense for my practice because, once again, the mind-body connection. what is it that you're unable to digest? Like what's going on maybe in your life that you're not able to digest, or what's causing stress that's impacting that rest and repair, the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's kind of like where I started studying this approach. So I think of like my example driving. I do not like driving into Chicago, and you know, the whole time. The girls are in the back seat and like, mom. Okay, yes, gotta be I'm trying to drive into the city. And then finally, you know, I'm like, all right, Crystal, you're gonna be fine. You're just not thrilled about driving in a lot of traffic with a minivan. And so, you know, I connected to the girls. You know, girls, I'm really stressed out right now. Like, you know, mom doesn't like driving in the city. Can you wait to ask me your questions? And I'm not a perfect parent or anything. So, but I'm just trying to explain like how I recognize the stress within myself and how I was able to not yell at them and just kind of verbalize where I was at. So I see this as an approach to parenting that we can use to build the next generation. So to talk more about the vagal nerve, I feel like it's important to know what the vagal nerve does, because it does a ton of things. So like I said, I was getting a little sciencey, so I grabbed my old anatomy book. And what? Okay, I'm like, I got like maybe 5 minutes and I'll be ready. Like I said, I brought my anatomy book, but the vagus nerve is truly, it's cranial nerve, and it connects our brain to so many organs in our body, and it impacts our throat. So when you're nervous, it can impact your ability to speak. It impacts your lungs, so it can impact your respiration rate. So if you're feeling stressed out, you know, you can have an increased respiration rate. It impacts your heart. That's why sometimes we'll feel like that rapid heartbeat when we're nervous. It impacts our digestion. So if you're feeling stressed out, you might have more issues around your digestive capabilities. So it even impacts your kidneys. And I'll just kind of walk around with a picture to show you guys how this nerve, vagus nerve, means wandering. So it wanders. I mean, it's really connected to everything. And you can get really even philosophical, at least I do. I'm really into chakras. So I think about even how these impact the chakras. I feel like this nerve is the connection. At least part of it. It's not everything, but I think it's part of it. I mean, if you realize how much it's connected to everything, it's part of our mind-body connection. So with understanding, you saw the nerve, then we want to kind of break down the nerve into 3 different ways it works. The first way, they call it the ventral vagal. Once again, a little mini anatomy lecture here. The ventral vagal is kind of the front part of your nerve. Ventral means anterior or front. So the ventral vagal is actually the circuit for calming. So ideally you do want to be more in a ventral vagal state, an area of calming. I kind of think of the animals, like if a dog flips and wants you to rub their tummy, then they're feeling safe, they're feeling connected, and they're in a ventral vagal. So the other circuit is the sympathetic, which is that fight or flight. So that's when your nervous system wants to try to mobilize, like truly, like you want to fight or flee. So you will like try to think through ways that you want to argue with somebody, or you may want to even get physically aggressive, or you want to leave you want to mobilize, you want to leave the situation. Then the other part of this vagal nervous system is what they call the dorsal vagal circuit, and that's the being immobilized without any capability of either fighting or flight. And that's actually not a good place to be. When you're in that, what they call the dorsal vagal circuit, or in that immobilized state of fear and panic, you can start to disassociate. So you can disassociate with the people around you, you can disassociate with your family, and you can also disassociate within your own body. And that doesn't necessarily look like a psychological disorder. There is one that's diagnosable, but this is truly, to me, when I think about that, that's truly like someone not feeling grounded in their body. So those are kind of like 3 areas that this works. So strategies to help our vagus nerve and to get more into that ventral vagal or calming circuit, and even include vocal intonation, the way you speak. Singing helps, humming, singing in the shower, playing a wind instrument. Even listening to music 500 hertz and higher engages the vagal, the polyvagal circuits in the ventral vagal system. So that's interesting. You can find music. I know I look on YouTube and I can find music for 500 hertz and higher. So you can search that up. Other ways are tuning into your breath. How often are you taking a breath? Are you paying attention to your breath? Focusing on where your emotions are. Are they impacting your gut? I brought up digestion a lot. That's a big part of my practice. So, you know, what is that enteric nervous system? Are you feeling it? Can you feel any pain? Or is it in your lungs? You know, is it in your throat? Try to pay attention to where you're feeling anything. Pain, symptoms, stress. I heard
Tight.
tight. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, tight. I hear, and I'll have patients tell me I feel it in my neck. So, you know, that's even part of this circuit. Another question is very similar to what I already said. Where do you feel your emotions in your body? Are your shoulders tight? Is your jaw clenched? Do you feel heart palpitations, gut and pain? So bring focus and awareness to these areas, and then also breathe into these areas and acknowledge your emotions. So sometimes if you're really paying attention and connecting to the areas that need your assistance and your attention right now, your emotions and your past experiences might come up, and it might give you an opportunity to start to process those. So earlier we were talking about conversations we had with family that might not have gone so well, and you may want to focus on, where am I feeling that in my physiology, like in my physical person, and can you work on releasing that, healing that up. And right now, I think the best thing you can do is have awareness in those areas and just allow breath to come into those areas. Yoga and mindful movement are also really good to engage the polyvagal system, which is what they're doing over there. I mentioned singing, this positive social experience. Also connection to loved ones and physical proximity, I was mentioning that. If you've ever heard of HeartMath, I actually brought my sensor if anyone wants to look at it later. But it's almost like biofeedback, where it looks at your heart rate variability and connects it to your mental emotional state. That's all based on the vagus nerve. So then also finally love connects it. Yeah, thank you.
Also, Abby mentioned listening to music with like high frequency.
Yes.
There's a website called Listening to Smile, and it's a musician who creates very high frequency music, which he then sells. So a resource for you.
Yeah, I guess
Listening to smile.
Listening to Smile.
And does it make you think like, oh, like that all makes sense now? Like after I heard this type of theory, it was like, wow, the things I gravitated towards to help me regulate make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Could you pass the book, Crystal? I wanted to have a